Not what I wanted to do. Hey, what's going on, everybody? That did not fade out at all.
Oh.
What's going on, everybody? Today is April 17, 2024, and it's Wednesday, which means we are going to be talking about all the news that we think is interesting within the last week. If I didn't say it because I got thrown off in my intro there, this is the Daily AI Show live. Thank you for being here. Today we got Jyunmi, Beth, Andy, Eran, and I'm Brian. And we have a whole bunch to talk about today. So I think what we want to do is we're going to kind of kick it off with OpenAI, mainly because there's several smaller stories. I don't know, some of them are bigger, I suppose, but there's several like stories about OpenAI. So Beth, I want to kick it over to you because you had named a few, and let's sort of start there, and then we'll get into the other news as well.
So there are two stories, two changes that OpenAI is making that relate to each other. One is there's a new dynamic model option. And so while I'm talking, I'm going to share my screen so that you can see this. And I should have set that up beforehand. Yes. And basically what this does is allow OpenAI to choose. So if you go up here where I have GPT-4, or I could pick 3.5, I have dynamic. It says optimized for speed and intelligence. And what that means is that you're allowing a query to be run on top of your prompt to determine an internal query to be run on top of your prompt to determine whether a 3.5 or 4 would be best. As far as I know, it just involves those because this is the chat part. So that's one piece. You can sort of see OpenAI trying to grow in ways or control the traffic that's happening on the bigger models. For the same kind of idea, they've created. They released something that allows you to batch API calls for things that don't need to be done immediately, but can be shunted off to like a lower use time. And if you're willing to do those API calls in that batch, the cost to you as a developer is 50% less. So they're immediately half as expensive. And to me, these just show OpenAI trying to balance the growing pains of the increased usage and the increased usage over models and be able to play a little bit without everybody saying, I'm going to use GPT-4 all the time right now because it's the best and that's what I want to do. I think probably the batch.
When was the last time you used 3.5? I can't remember for myself.
I have used it actually, but it's a specific use case, and I certainly that question doesn't occur to me very often. There was a story about leaking. So 2 individuals got fired from OpenAI for leaking secrets. It seems like there was a bunch of spin around that and trying to find a there, but it just seems like they're a company that doesn't want their stuff told, and some people told it, so they lost their jobs. Yeah. At least that's what it sounds like. And opening the Tokyo hub. Jyunmi, do you want to say something about that?
I found that of all the OpenAI information, I thought that was pretty interesting. Tokyo, or Japan in general, has had a history of being at the forefront of certain kinds of technologies, or the combination or communication between human and technology. And we can see this a lot in their entertainment and history and a lot of the things that come out, the art and all that kind of stuff. So I think OpenAI making the move to that region, having a hub and offices down or over there makes a lot of sense. Also, there isn't a ton of competition as of yet. SoftBank may be the biggest competition because they announced a few months ago that they were going all in. They were going to build their own. So this may be OpenAI's move to just like, hey, we're ready to go now, and we're going to develop a product specifically for you. Now, how this ties into what we've covered before with Sakana, the evolution model merge. might be interesting, because one of the reasons they created it was because Japanese models at the time were having a hard time trying to keep up. So they devised a method to merge them all. So I think seeing a lot of movement in East Asia and particularly in Japan is probably a good thing for OpenAI as a whole. And I'd really love to see more localizations, maybe not necessarily just OpenAI, but more large localizations or investments for those localizations in AI models.
Nice.
Yeah. The only other OpenAI thing I had real quick was just about the new, like the GPT-4 turbo models, and not even just turbo, but like these April 9th, sort of like in the last week-ish or so, they sort of put out these new updates. The only thing I've really seen, I sort of tried to do some research on it, and I guess I'll just have to play, is that it seems to be less wordy. At least those are the examples I've seen, where previously GPT-4 would, sort of talk over itself and be very, very wordy about giving you the answer. But a lot of times you just want the answer. You're like, I need you to just be succinct. We see this a lot with like cold email writing, specifically in GPT-4, where it wants to get very wordy and talk all around it. You're like, no, what I actually need you to do is hit the value proposition. I need you to hit the pain point. I need you to hit the trends. And then I need you to close the email, and it's a tough thing, right? Like it's a different way of being succinct. So that's the only thing I've seen. I definitely want to dig in more. I've been very vocal about this. I know on this show that I just have not been impressed at all with whatever they're doing on the back end, especially with the GPTs that I've built. It's caused problems for both internally. It's caused problems for some of our clients. It hasn't been a great 2 weeks, I'll say, using ChatGPT. So I'm hopeful that was just a growing pain thing. And now maybe they finally have deployed this. Maybe there's some iterations going on. We've certainly seen that in the past, where you could literally be using ChatGPT 1 hour and it was different than it was an hour later. Who knows? But I just say I'm hopeful, and I'm all for getting a little less wordy answers. So hopefully that's a thing, and you still get the same quality of the answers.
Let me comment on the values.
Go ahead,
let
Andy.
me comment on the value of that update. So you're seeing a cadence of releases now, and that one brought the knowledge base from April of 2023 down to December of 2023, very recently. So this is an improvement of the GPT-4 turbo model for sure. And then in addition, there was a comparison between that and the most advanced GPT-4 turbo model prior to this release. There were non-trivial advances in almost all the benchmark measures. It wasn't just a fractional kind of thing. There were significant increases in the numbers. So I'm hopeful then, Brian, that the actual performance of these new releases that are now available from OpenAI, that those are actually going to perform better than you've experienced recently.
I hope so. I hope so. Okay. Aaron, any other OpenAI stuff, or do you guys want to move on?
No, not
Move
for
on.
me. One thing I will say about OpenAI, if it's been flaky, keep Claude in your back pocket.
Oh yeah, I listen. I've been a fan of Claude for a long time, and I just use Claude. This would be more of a catch up, I guess, because we talked about it on Monday. We did a whole show on Udio. I don't want to get into that, but like I did work. I just in my off hours, I enjoy music, so it's fun for me to play with it. And what I'll say is actually not even so much about Udio, is that I just had a really great back and forth collaborative experience using Claude Sonnet. I wasn't using Opus. I wasn't using anything paid, but in that writing, I'll say this, it felt very much like sitting next to somebody and co-writing a song, because I was throwing out suggestions and Claude was throwing out suggestions. And then I would say, well, maybe this. And Claude would say, oh, it's always going to be positive. So it's like, oh, I like that idea. That brings in the double entendre that you were trying to work on from over in this area. So let's weave that back in. It just was very easy to use. And it's just a good reminder that Claude is an excellent tool for communication. And I'm with you, Aaron. I highly recommend people, if they're not going and giving the free version of Claude a try, you're missing out. You should go see what it can do and have a conversation over there, because they're at another level. I think Claude just is a really, really good. And I know this all what model is doing better, but just go have a conversation with Claude. That would be my update on that. So
yeah. So all right, who's next? Andy,
I can share a quick one that's just from Google DeepMind, just because I thought it was cool. I'll pop it up on my screen. Google DeepMind's always doing some cool stuff, and they have a video here about sort of like the dexterity of their robots. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. There we go. We don't even need to see the audio on it or anything like that. Where's my play? There it goes. So what we're seeing in this video is we've got one robot hand, and then we've got two other robot hands who are doing something pretty complex. They're working together. Two arms are working together to replace the pinchers, let's call it, on another robot hand. And so this was all about like how Google DeepMind is, getting better and better with working with robots and dexterity specifically. Also, what's really, I think, interesting in here for anybody that's been following on Google is they were very clear to say this is all done in one take. Because if anything, we know with Google, they've had some issues with maybe doing some happy editing along the way. And they were, it's even on the screen, it says one take and it says autonomous 2x. So this might be running at 2 speed, which is a little disappointing. But in this last one, they just showed tying a shoe, which was pretty cool. And in this one, they're actually hanging a shirt on a hanger, which also very kind of cool to watch it. And what is cool about it is just watching the two arms sort of work in unison, where they're clearly trying to accomplish the task together, as opposed to one arm doing one thing and another arm doing another. So just sort of some cool stuff coming into Google DeepMind about what they're working on. Just sort of a fun video. It's always cool to see what's going on with the latest and greatest with robots. So just that one came out yesterday, so I wanted to announce that one.
Yeah, in that video, you saw the one robot arm pick up the hanger and pass it over to the other arm that was working.
Pretty cool.
And this is very topical for me because we have a 5-month-old baby in our household, not mine, my daughter's. But that 5-month-old is just now learning to grasp something in one hand, get them both together, and then move it over to the other hand and move it somewhere else. That's a tricky thing to learn.
Yeah. And, look, we could go down a whole rabbit hole here. We don't need to today about what the implications of something like this are. Just think of all the people who have various disabilities, various disease states where dexterity has been lost for one reason or another, and where maybe down the road, smaller versions of this to tie somebody's shoes if they can't do that. If they have, their hands shake or they can't grasp as tight as they want, who knows where this could go. Generally, though, we see this stuff get even better. The dexterity gets better and we see it get tinier. So, will this be in a small something that's home that can do a lot of things like folding shirts, hanging up shirts, all this kind of stuff. So just cool. It's really cool stuff.
Robot butlers for everyone.
It's coming.
Okay. I'd like to move to Microsoft and their $1.5 billion investment in a private company in the United Arab Emirates that is the leading developer of AI in the Middle East. And this is very important because up to this point, Arabic has been a sort of a secondary language among the foreign languages that is secondary to English, and certainly to lots of others, Spanish, French, German, etc., that are widely available. But Arabic and the Arabic script, those things have been difficult to incorporate into AI. But G42, this private company, pretty well funded, I'm certain, in the United Arab Emirates, has developed an Arabic language model called JAIS, and it is the leading Arabic AI system. And now Microsoft is making that model, that Arabic model, available in the Azure suite, and they're also providing a $1 billion fund for developments in the Arabic-speaking regions. So this is a very, very important sort of conquest. Probably the wrong term, but if you think about, corporate strategy as being, okay, we need to take over these territories with our products as best we can. Well, this is a major incursion into a whole region with an enormous investment and the cooperation of the governments of the United Arab Emirates and others in the region, I'm sure.
Yeah. I want to say too, this is not AI news, but just really quick, if anybody's seen the recent news of the flooding that's going on in Dubai and the thunderstorms they're having, for anybody that might be listening in that area, just definitely thinking about you, because like that, I've been to Dubai, and to think about there being thunderstorms there and flooding is a weird thing to think about. Just because that's not what you would not associate that with that landscape and all that. And it's such a beautiful city. And the way it's been designed and stuff. So anyway, just wanted to bring that up. It has nothing to do with AI, but that was in the news, and it's kind of some crazy video footage from the last day or so. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut whoever I did off.
Also, just to clarify, it is a $1 billion investment, but it's actually more than $1 billion. It's $1.5 billion investment. And while like rounding up or down seems reasonable, these are billions. So the 0.5 seems like really consequential.
And to correct myself on that, it is a 1.5. It's a 1.5 billion investment into that company, but 1 billion of that is earmarked to invest in development in the region. So and so this G42 company and Microsoft together are collaborating with the approval and support of the government of the United Arab Emirates to invest in AI in that region. So it's a pass through in effect, but it's all Microsoft money, and it bought them a seat on the board by the president, Brad Smith, and also, obviously they have an equity stake, I'm sure, now in G42.
And there was some concern, if I'm remembering correctly, there was some concern about China in this space, and Microsoft went through the Biden administration to okay, so what can happen in this context? So the company did shift some of its relationships and how I think how China gets access. I think that was cleaned up or State Department approved kind of stuff.
Yeah. And real quick on the $1 billion comment, just because this was from Google DeepMind as well, that the head of DeepMind said that Google, I guess, will spend over 100 billion on AI. Now, he didn't put a time frame on that, but I was curious. So I said, what is $100 billion over 10 years per day? And by the way, Google Generative Experience did a fantastic job breaking down that math problem. It actually did it right there in the Google search results. It was really cool to see. I know it's not a super hard math problem, but we know LLMs struggle with math, and it actually did a great job of reasoning through it. Anyway, the answer to that is $27 million a day. So these are big numbers that companies are just throwing around. And I agree, Beth, sometimes that 0.5 and it seems flippant. It's plus or minus 3 billion. You're like, plus or minus 3 billion. What are we, all been saying that, they're going to need $1 trillion for their thing. It starts to sound like an Austin Powers joke. I'm going to need $1 trillion, and then even 1 billion would be laughable in that movie at this point. If you were talking about, AI, I agree. It's these numbers are out of control and it's hard to conceptualize. But yeah, 100 billion over 10 years would be spending $27 million per day. That's crazy. Jimmy, you got some stuff as far as video stuff. You want to share that?
Yeah. So we got announcements both from Adobe and DaVinci in terms of updating their editing suites with AI components. On the DaVinci Resolve side of things, they have new AI-powered features for generating effects, color grading, editing, and audio. All from what I've seen so far, they're mostly back-end effects that allow users to quickly do presets or a lot of cleanup type of features. So all of the low-hanging fruit or the mundane tasks that color graders are going to go through and fixing audio and all of those kinds of things. So it's good to see that one of the major software editors out there is supporting more AI components. The larger story, I think, is Adobe's announcement. Admittedly, these are all supposed to come out later in the year, but Adobe's added a couple of main features directly in Premiere. The first one I want to talk about is the something that I had mentioned, a couple weeks ago in terms of fixing video or filling in video. So they've added that capability. You can now fill in some interposing frames between two cuts or two edits, or realign with audio and things like that. And so it'll generate the based upon the video before it, the next few frames. So interpreting what needs to fill in between point A and point B, which for video editing is fantastic. It solves a bunch of problems. Now, they weren't specific on how much you could do. So it's not like, oh, let me, do an entire scene or whatnot, but it's great for fixing. The other feature that I really liked was the add and remove or add and replace feature, where you could identify objects within your scene and use their generative AI to remove the basically, paint the image and remove any of those objects that it identifies. So if there's a sign that's not supposed to be in there, or you didn't want a door in the shot, or you needed to even on the ad side, they showed in their demo, they showed how they had a briefcase that was barely full of an object, and you needed to fill the whole briefcase full of this object. So these are all demos and things like that they were showing off. But what this adds is, and a lot of post-production folks may not like this, but it may they may be relied on more to fix it in post, right? It's like, oh, we don't have to worry about what's in the shot so much, because they can just edit it out, erase that that workout. And so a lot of that's been happening over the years. So this is probably a big lift, or a big lift of the weight off of their shoulders. Is these are great features that quickly do these kinds of fixes in your overall edit. So I'm really excited about that. The other key thing here is while Adobe is creating their own generative AI models, they are giving you the opportunity to integrate existing ones. So they were showing off how you could choose Runway ML as your generative. Sora is something that they're plugging into. Pika is another one that they're plugging into. So really a move towards, hey, we're still the major editing platform, or we're still the major creative platform. Use all your favorite models within the platform if you want. And then of course we'll come out with our own. So maybe buying a little time, but also giving a lot more options to whoever's already entrenched or invested in those platforms like Adobe or DaVinci and those workflows, especially on the professional or commercial level.
Speaking of Adobe, one of the items I wanted to share it wasn't really a massive newsy piece as such, but they did basically announce that they're investing $3, and I'm assuming this US, per minute to buy video content to fortify their own text-to-video generator, which is aimed at narrowing the competition from Sora when it becomes available. So they've gone out to their extensive network of photographers and artists and asked them to submit short videos just capturing commonplace activities and human emotions, etc. And the idea is to use that to train their company. And I would imagine that that content will also probably end up in Adobe's stock libraries at some stage for people to buy as well. So this is a bit of a win-win. And then the other news item I wanted to talk about was the announcement of Intel releasing a new GPU chip to take on our friends at NVIDIA called Gaudi 3. Now, before we go to that, the first thing it said in there, I went and read the article, and it said that, where is it now? NVIDIA is currently the third most valuable company in the world. It's practically printing money, according to analysts. And I went, who's the top two? And I immediately thought of some of the obvious, but it's actually Microsoft and Apple with some obscene amounts of money. But anyway, this new chip is supposed to be, they've only announced it. It's supposed to be better than the NVIDIA H100. It's going to have more compute power, networking bandwidth, memory, and it's also going to train language learning models 50% faster than the NVIDIA $40,000 H100 chip, and 30% faster inference or using data to make predictions for top LLMs compared to NVIDIA's H200 chip. So fun games going on, and I know that all of the other companies are now starting to produce their own chips, because at the moment they've all given NVIDIA obscene amounts of money, which is why it's the third most valuable company in the US at the moment. But yeah, it will be very interesting to see where this goes. That's me.
Karl, talk to us about, you're muted, but talk to us about...
Talk to us about how you can get Google AI stuff in Canada, Karl.
Yeah, I can't use any of this crap. No, actually, I can. So I don't know if anyone was paying attention to Google Cloud Next. It's their major conference, and they have the new Vertex AI agent builder, where I feel it's a kind of like a custom GPT, and I haven't fully played around with it yet. And, you know, they showcased over, I don't know, hundreds of companies that have used it, apparently. So it's very interesting. I think 101 plus real world AI gen use cases. So, and that's through the Google Cloud blog. And yeah, they just showcase all the different logos and how they're powering the different AI solutions. They aren't necessarily just using the agents function, although the agents is actually I guess, the evolution of the Vertex AI conversation and search builder. So I'm really curious how this thing works. It's still kind of the same as a custom GPT, although it's a little different, where you can put it, hey, what do you want to accomplish? Here's some random instructions, and then you still have to do a data store. I can't use Gemini Advanced. I can only use Gemini Pro 1.0. So I don't know who can use 1.5, and I don't know who can. I don't think they have the advanced model to be able to use it. So I don't know how you would test it correctly, but it's worth playing it with all those companies who should be using Google Cloud, or however they're using Vertex. They have examples of it. But yeah, it's an interesting use. I don't think it's necessarily what we think of agents, where it can give it a goal and it can just accomplish the task or set tasks. I think it's still a task-based agent, if you want to call it that way. But you can kind of see where they're going, where they lay the foundation of agents, and then as models get better, these agents can do more and more.
Yeah, one of the lines in the documentation of that is that for more complex goals, you can string multiple agents together. So I think you're right that the agents that they're talking about here have a similarity to Chat GPT, custom GPTs at the moment with function calling, but there may not be an architecture already there that makes a single agent that you create capable of pursuing and spawning other agents in pursuit of a goal.
Yes.
But the foundation is there, absolutely. But that's their intention, is this is going to be agents quite distinct from assistants. Those two terms are measurably different.
I think the I think Paul Reitzer said it, where like they needed to commoditize their whatever this is. So I think AI agents is like the buzzword in the industry right now. So AI agents it is, and then Vertex AI agent builder. But you still like I feel it's not as easy as a custom GPT. There's a couple extra steps that you have to. And just like Microsoft, with how I'm finding their Copilot Studio, which is one of the toughest things, it's actually easier to code build a RAG system than actually go through Copilot Studio. It is a tough challenge. It is rough. But I think like this, it's easier than that, but it's not as easy as a custom GPT.
Yeah. No, I think the like you said, the custom GPT, what it has going for it is it's over to like an AI assistant or API assistant or something like that is, you know, you're going to be able to build it with relative ease. It's super intuitive to build, and it's going to have up to date, you know, browsing features, as well as that we know now the models are trained up through December of 2023 anyway. So it's still very easy. There's some things you lose along the way, you know, like you're saying, Karl, where you can maybe have some advantages, but to me, the benchmark is, will it be, you know, is it as easy to deploy as a custom GPT would be right now? And then, you know, like you're saying, maybe like the studio is a lot of work, and it's going to end up turning people away from it, you know, for that. Okay, I only had two things really quick, but they're quick ones. One, I just wanted to acknowledge Mistral. That's the French company that we've talked about many times before. They have open source language models. They're in another. They're seeking, quote, several $100 million in new fundraising round. They've been raising several $100 million. It seems like every 3 months. So they're in a rapid fundraising period. I think they also just turned a profit, which is really cool to hear. And, you know, it's one of these companies that we want to continue to look at. They very quickly have had some of their models in the top of the leaderboard when people are, you know, rating them and things like that. So certainly a company to keep watching. It doesn't sound like they're going anywhere. Me personally, I'm just really excited that there's a company that's coming out of France versus coming out of the West Coast of the US, like we talked about yesterday. Jyunmi and I were talking about that, and how that ultimately is a good thing for everybody. So I'm happy to see a company being successful coming from somewhere else other than the States.
Yeah. So one last story, Reka, REKA, announced their frontier class multimodal language model. So if one of the words is agent, another word is multimodal for all our LLM needs. And the big thing about this is that in the benchmarks that in the main benchmarks that people measure against, it beat Gemini's video capability.
And Beth, you're reminding me once again that we need to do a show. Maybe next week we'll do it on words and acronyms currently in AI, because you're right. They keep people use agent wrong. People use assistant wrong. God knows we saw what happened with Copilot as that was used across the board. So I think we need to do a show and just be like, look, as it stands right now, this is what these words mean. And it may change tomorrow, but this is where we are right now.
Their present understanding.
I won't be here on Friday, so I'm going to miss this, but hopefully you guys do a great job talking about, because Friday's our recap show of our last 2 weeks for our audience. And one of the shows we did last week was talking about like, hey, here come the gadgets. Well, one of the gadgets is here. That's the humane pin. And unless you're under a rock, you kind of follow these things. The humane pin has gotten sort of obliterated with its reviews. There's ones from Marquise Brownlee, as well as another one I saw from a YouTube channel called Mr. Who's the Boss. And I'm sure 20 others that have done it, but it has not fared well. I will just say that. So you guys may talk about that more on Friday's show. I'll leave it for that, but since it's news, I just wanted to bring that up and say, you know, I think it's a lesson. It's a cautionary tale of when you put out these devices and you're the company, managing expectations. You know, I don't think it's necessarily bad that they had a $700 device. I don't think that's the problem at all. It's that they didn't manage expectations about what you were actually going to get. And they maybe left it a little too open to, you know, these sort of amazing things that were going to happen with the main pin, which clearly didn't. And that just ends up making people feel like they didn't get what they were expecting. And I really put that back on the company. So hopefully other companies like Rabbit R1 and others who are about to launch or are currently launching in this gadget, they sort of pay attention to this and they do a lot better job with their communication to the customer. Because again, not really a problem that it's a $700 gadget. There's people who will pay that happily and then put it in a drawer. There's money to go around. But I don't know. So you guys hopefully we'll talk more about that on Friday's show and you can talk about it. But that was a big news story in the last 7 days for sure. Any others before we wrap it up?
There is one. Can I share my screen really quickly? Because this is kind of all over the place with I think Boston Dynamics showed. I don't know if anyone saw the robot.
Yep.
Yeah. That was one of the ones I was going to mention,
which is interesting.
Oh, that's not creepy at all.
No, not at all.
Holy man!
Well, I was going to say this is the kind of humanoid robot that people are afraid of from sci-fi movies.
100%. Like
I didn't need to see that at all. I'm sorry for people like whoever's not watching this. You're only listening to us. You need to go to Boston Dynamics and watch this robot get up off the floor. That will,
or you may not.
Or you may not want to watch it.
Maybe you don't.
At all. I just thought it was very funny because I was like, that gives me vibes of like actual like, if we put this robot down and then it's like it resurrects to. I'm like, those movies where you put something down. Yes, it was an attacking robot. Need is like, and it was like it's coming back,
shooting up.
I'm so screwed.
Hey, real quick, I want to give a shout out to that was creepy, man. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get that out of my head. Thanks, Karl. Jennifer put in the comments here. She said, "Hey, please check out my article on biometric data and the humane pin." So Jennifer, thank you so much. You put in and by the way, her last name is Stivers. If you want to go follow her on LinkedIn and check out that article. Jennifer has commented a couple times. So thank you, Jennifer. It sounds like you're doing pretty amazing work and it sounds like we need to get you on the show as a guest to talk about all the cool things you're doing with AI and your research. So go ahead. No? Okay. All right. We'll wrap it up there. Thanks for hanging out with us. As always, it's nice to see 6 of us. It was just Jyunmi and I yesterday. So we have 6 today. We're just missing Robert. But come on back tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about Stanford University's most recent, came out on Monday's AI Index report that they put out. So we're going to deep dive into that. I'm sure we'll all be using some language models to help us summarize and even look into that. And then we'll have a conversation about that tomorrow. And as I already mentioned, Friday is our 2-week recap show. That's the What Did We Just Say, where we'll go back through some of the different shows that we've had over the last 2 weeks. And we'll touch base on them again. Who knows? All sorts of fun stuff comes up on that Friday show. So keep coming back the rest of this week. And for that, we'll just say goodbye for today. Now, let me see if I can hit all the right buttons to get us on the out. Here we go. I can do it.
Aloha.